Alrighty, so apparently there is a clip from the hearing of Kristi Noem recently that's just been going viral. I want to take a look at it, but I don't want to just listen to the clip. There's like a 1-minute clip that keeps flowing around everywhere. So I've gone to the actual 2-hour-long hearing, and hopefully I have the thing that we need to cover. I don't know what we're going to be seeing. You are as in the know as I am. So let's go ahead and see what gets said here.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Madam Secretary. Secretary Noem, the White House Deputy Chief of Staff recently said that the Trump administration is actively looking at suspending habeas corpus. Last week you were asked about this, and I want to clarify your position because it's obviously really important to get this right. So Secretary Noem, what is habeas corpus?
Well, habeas corpus is a constitutional right that the president has to be able to remove people from this country and suspend their right to...
Let me stop you, ma'am.
Suspend their
habeas
right to...
corpus, excuse me, that's incorrect.
President
habeas
Lincoln
corpus,
used it.
Excuse me. Habeas corpus is the legal principle that requires that the government provide a public reason for detaining and imprisoning people. If not for that protection, the government could simply arrest people, including American citizens, and hold them indefinitely for no reason. Habeas corpus is the foundational right that separates free societies like America from police states like North Korea. As a senator from the Live Free or Die state, this matters a lot to me and my constituents and to all Americans. So Secretary Noem, do you support the core protection that habeas corpus provides, that the government must provide a public...
So how did you... Okay, so for one, I feel like that, right to presumed innocence, effectively, I feel like that's a basic thing that anybody who is involved with the Department of Homeland Security, of all things, should know, right? You would think that. You would think that. Like, in simple terms, it's your right to appear in a court and have a judge determine if your detention is lawful. That's it. That's what it should be. And yet, Kristi Noem is sitting here going, it's the right for the president to do whatever the fuck he wants. How? What? How did you even get to that? You're in a position that should not be thinking this dumb shit. You're in a position that should understand what this thing means. But instead, you are here doing this. And I know the incredulity doesn't help anything. It literally is me proving I have no idea why the hell she thinks this. But let's continue.
Public reason in order to detain and imprison someone.
Yet I support habeas corpus. I also recognize that the President of the United States has the authority under the Constitution to decide if it should be suspended or not.
It has never
Let us be clear.
What? I believe in habeas corpus, and I believe in Trump's ability to ignore it. I would like you, ma'am. I would like you to just stop talking. She supports something that she just learned the proper definition of. Like, no, this is... So the actual stuff that Senator Hassan was pointing out is that habeas corpus is what keeps us from being a police state. In theory, there is a huge element that the United States is still a police state, especially after 9/11. It is at least a surveillance state. But all of that aside, the idea that habeas corpus should just be suspended because the president decides it can be, if the president can carte blanche decide that habeas corpus should be suspended and should not be something that we honor in whatever scenario he deems fit himself, then we just have a police state. We just have a police state at that point. Like, we just have a fascist state. Not a state with a fascist person at the top. Not a state with a fascist regime that is trying to convert us deeply into fascism. We just have that. We just have that. 110%. And the fact that Kristi Noem ignores that is way more telling. Way more telling the more you realize that she's just a Trump sycophant who has her position of power because of Trump sycophancy.
It has never been done. It has never been done without approval of Congress. Even Abraham Lincoln got retroactive approval from Congress. So I have been asking executive branch nominees a simple question over the past few months. If the president orders them to break the law, I've been asking, will you follow the law or follow the order? I want to ask you a more specific question here. If the president tries to suspend habeas corpus and a federal court reverses the president's order, will you comply with the court order and uphold habeas corpus, or will you follow the president's directive?
We are following all federal court orders and are complying.
No, you're not. If you were, Trump would not be ignoring 9-0 judge rulings.
With that, as is the president, and every decision that I make as well.
That is obviously not true for anybody who reads the news. There are federal court orders right now, including returning somebody who was deported mistakenly. But
I wouldn't rely on the news for your facts. Then what would you rely on? What would you rely on then? If not the people's whose actual job it is to get information about the world around you and present it to you from a first-person perspective. What else would you rely on? Because you can't just rely on your own perspective. What are you going to do? Be in the middle of every meeting of every single administration of all time ever? You literally do not have enough hours in the day. At some point, you're going to have to rely on somebody's reporting. And yes, that reporting can be fact-checked to show that it is accurate. If you are not okay with like the concept that, oh, well, you shouldn't listen to the news. I have my problems with news outlets, especially Fox News, even more recently CNN. Like, I have my problems with how a lot of these outlets have been acting and how they have been basically bending the knee or just getting fucking bought out by billionaires in this, in the case of the Washington Post. I have my problems with how the news operates, but I'm not going to sit here and say, well, the news isn't facts. Like, that's a statement that immediately gets proven false the minute a single reporter says the sky is blue on a clear day. Now suddenly they've reported a fact. Whoopsie daisy. Guess you're fucking wrong.
To be clear, this is about a fundamental legal right that ensures that we live in a free society instead of a police state that would have a sham legal system like Russia or North Korea. So I'm glad that you have now committed to following court orders. I'm glad you believe in the basic freedom for Americans if ordered to do so by a court. And again, I want just to make clear that it is critically important that even if the president tries to suspend the right of people to know why they've been detained or imprisoned, if a federal court reverses that order, that you will follow that order. And I hope all the members of the administration will, because it's obviously critical that some of the people, for instance, who've been deported by mistake, who didn't get due process, be returned in compliance with court orders.
She's just, so, prediction, she's just going to weasel her way around this. Because the administration's just going to go, oh, no, well, we don't have the ability to do that. And then the administration that does have the power to do that actually is holding him in prison, is going to go, we don't have the power to do that either, because that's what fucking happened already. Let's see.
So now, let's move on to another issue. International criminal organizations target Americans with sophisticated cyber crime.
Oh, okay, so Russia.
Including elaborate scams that robbed Americans of billions of dollars, with seniors in the United States losing $5 billion to scammers in 2024 alone. As artificial intelligence improves, so does the ability of criminals to deceive and defraud Americans. With this new technology, criminals can impersonate loved ones, develop advanced malware, or make more convincing phishing messages. How is DHS working to identify trends in illegal activity and ensure that new AI systems have safeguards in place to prevent their use in criminal activity?
Yes, we are working extensively through CISA, but in all of our agencies to make sure that we're going after these criminal, nefarious actors. I would say partnering with private industry is critically important so that we have the insight that we need to really understand the tactics that they use and the advancements in software.
I mean, obviously, you have to
the AI ability that they have to adjust and to
obviously, you have to actually partner with criminals in order to get the insight on other criminals.
To supersede some of our systems is incredible. And so investing in those systems is important, but also having the knowledge and bringing everybody to the table and breaking down the silos between our agencies and our intelligence agencies is important, so we all have the information that we need to get.
Well, and that gets me to one final point and question here, because Senator Peters began to ask about it. There's been recent reporting that indicates that the Chinese government installed remote access to Chinese-made power inverters in the U.S., raising concerns that the Chinese government could try to disable parts of our power grid. And you made a comment following up on Senator Peters' question about the importance of not only working with private industry on this issue, as you would also want to work on AI, but also on working with state and local governments on cybersecurity. And can you just talk to me a little bit about how DHS is partnering with state and local governments right now on cyber?
Well, that's one of the core critical missions of CISA, is to help those state and local governments harden their systems. We're extremely vulnerable by our weakest link. And so when you have a small state that doesn't have the resources it needs to invest in these security operations, then they're vulnerable to attacks.
All right, so I can see why it was just that clip that went viral and nothing else, because the rest of this is boring as sin. The rest of this is boring as sin. Kristi Noem not knowing what habeas corpus is, despite being part of the Department of Homeland Security. Like, she is a person who should understand what protections U.S. citizens have under the law, what protections people have under the law, and yet she doesn't. Like, that's it. There's nothing else here that is particularly interesting, just that. So I guess I'll comment on that. Maybe we'll watch a little bit more of it, but it's frightening. It is frightening. And in a sane world, everybody would be petitioning for the removal of Kristi Noem as the honorable Kristi Noem. Fucking twerp. We would be petitioning for her to be removed from her position of power. Because anybody in a position of power that goes, well, actually, no, I don't care about your rights. I don't care about your human rights. That person doesn't deserve that power in the first place. They really don't. So there were she does understand, but wants to muddy the waters. So the thing is, we can only take her by her word, and by her word, she doesn't understand it, and therefore doesn't deserve the position. Simple as that. But if we were to take your theory that maybe she does understand it, but wants to muddy the waters, then yes, that makes it way worse. Because now she is attempting to deliberately obfuscate what the rights of individuals are, period. Instead of being willing to follow the law. I like Big Oily Men 12. Thank you for the follow. But instead of following the law, and instead of being an advocate for sane law practices, she is instead being an advocate for what you very undoubtedly have as police state actions. That's the kind of stuff that she is here for. That's the stuff that she wants to do. Now, granted, it makes sense. Her goal at the end of the day is to make sure that the Trump regime is able... What is... Huh? Fuck off, co-pilot. I don't want you here. No. Goodbye. Jesus. Anyway... Justice says we can take her at her word that when she says the president has a power the Constitution expressly gave to Congress shows that she does not understand the most fundamental of our legal framework and should be removed. You know, so Again, her job is to give Trump more power. Her job is to consolidate more power in the hands of the president. And the right wing knows that this is a this is a winning strategy, right? The reason it's a winning strategy, it's going to sound stupid, it's going to sound dumb, but it's a winning strategy because in the halls of government, when you enshrine more power into law, the Republicans will use that power to the fullest extent that they can. And then the Democrats, when they get power, they will try to go high where the Republicans went low. And therefore, they will not use the same powers that were granted to them by the Republicans. At least they will not wield them in as ham-fisted a manner. This creates a dynamic where the Republicans get to get more and more power the more time goes on, and then the Democrats, when given the option to use that power for some kind of good, just will do nothing. And that has been the case for a very, very long time. It's one of the failures of the Democratic Party, and it is an area where we need to either erode those powers every time that a president has office, or we need to start using them in the same way. If the Republicans want to create a banana fucking republic, then your only options are utilize the tools they've given you as per escalation theory, or get rid of those tools the minute you have that opportunity. The Democrats choose to do neither. They choose to just kind of sit there and squander it, or worse, consolidate more power into the seat and then not use that power for the benefit of the people. Which also happens. Joel says, it's my birthday week. You wish me a happy early birthday. Happy early birthday. How you doing, bud? But the fact of the matter is here, any and all circumstances are terrifying here, where whether Kristi Noem doesn't understand this and is therefore completely unqualified for her position, or she does understand this and is therefore going to use her position to hurt Americans or people who live in America, either one of those is not ideal in any way, shape, or form. Jessa says Biden was in power for 2 months after Trump v. U.S. was decided. Yup. Just, I really do not like. I'm in a weird spot where I simultaneously do not like the cowardice of the Democrats, but should the party shift into something other than just toe-sucking capitalists, I would be worried about that power being utilized in other ways, even under their foot. Like, it's simultaneously wanting them to wield that power to do some good and being utterly terrified of them wielding that power because they have the same corporate overlords as the Republicans. They just happen to have different political alignments on how they serve them.
And hacking attempts, and they can access our systems if they have a contract or a system that interfaces with the federal system. It makes us vulnerable as well. So we are responsible for 10 of the 16 critical infrastructures under the Department of Homeland Security, and making sure that China can't come in and shut down our electrical grid, our water systems, things that people rely on every day for their day-to-day lives is very important. So that's why we need these kind of partnerships, is to make sure that we're secure all the way down to our smallest actor that participates.
Well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate working more with you on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Lankford.
Okay, let's see what else is here.
Senator Noem, good to see you again. Thanks for your leadership and the work that you've already done, and there's a lot more still to do, but y'all have had a pretty remarkable start in the process.
Okay, so he's just going to be toe-sucking. I don't care about anything he says now. I'm sorry. Nope. If you begin the conversation with toe-sucking the fascist, I stop giving a shit about what you have to say. Especially when, again, we're toe-sucking a fascist. No. No, 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 no. Let's see here. Dude is an American Baptist minister and politician serving as senior United States Senator to Oklahoma. He has held that seat since 2015. He's a member of the Republican Party, and he represents Oklahoma's 5th Congressional District in the U.S. House of Representatives. Okay. Man, I hate just immediately saying, well, Republican. I guess I don't have to care about anything he has to say. But kind of where I'm at. Remember, you're very proud of all the accomplishments she's made with the administration. All the while, one of those accomplishments is not knowing what habeas corpus is. Serena says China doesn't care what America does to themselves. Oh, they do, though. They do. China is a trade partner, a trade war rival, and also an enemy. And also, like, there are a lot of things in regards to the United States on the global scale. They care what we do to ourselves, because what we do to ourselves provides openings for them. Jessa says we have to care because it's dangerous, but it's impossible to like what he has to say. Artemis says, I just walked into toe-sucking a fascist. What are y'all talking about? My deep-seated want for Sylvanas Windrunner to step on me, which is effectively toe-sucking a fascist. I understand. Senna says China cares as far as seizing soft power that was left behind after we snubbed USAID. Yep. How's it going, Senshini? I don't think I have anything else to comment on this. Like, we covered the viral bit. We covered a little bit afterwards. We've done what we can here, and I am deeply uninterested in everything else that goes on in this particular hearing. I really am. Anyway. God. Do you feel like habeas corpus being something that she doesn't understand is a direct side effect of this woman having zero compassion interlaced with her politics? Do you think that? I think that. Hey, thanks for making it to the end of the video. I really could not do any of this without all of you. Those of you watching, and especially those of you who support me on Patreon. I wanted to go ahead and take a minute to thank all of you who do that, because with YouTube being what it is these days, I really cannot do this full-time without the support from each and every one of you. Those people would be Red Joker, Purple Poundini, Jemshin, Britzkrieg, Jupe the Malignant, Michael, Ravalern, Mabbity Babbity, Astral Frontier, Tales of Atonement, Nixie Chan, Kiri Artemis, Victorian Alchemist, I'm not saying the last part of that, and you know that, Leela Ururaka, Arcton Arclacier, Kiratorian, Dren Hadamata, Jordan M, John L, Lord Bleck, Smiling Game Master, and Fireshard. Thank you so very much. But since you're here, why not go ahead and try watching another one? There should be one that's on the screen right now. And if you are a patron of mine, I wanted to go ahead and thank you again for all of your support. There is still a video you could press, though, if you'd like. I would appreciate it just a little bit.